45,000 words. That is the length of my first draft. It took me about 6-ish months to do. I started in April, finished in October, but they're the biggest story around it. And now I'm editing my second draft. I've always wanted to be an author. Ever since I would say 11, 12, I'd always come home to my mother and just tell her stories. I'd always tell stories every single day. I'd love to tell stories. I would even write them. I am embarrassed to show you those books, but they're bad. But I'd even write them. And then I'd say maybe 12, 13 in year 7. So year 6, this was my idea. Year 7, I fully took hold of it. I wanted to be an author. And I tried to write. My books, again, weren't that good. I never understood what I was writing. I never understood how could people write these vivid scenes. So then I quit. About 14 years old, I quit. And I just wanted to be a businessman. Still kind of do want to be a businessman. But what calls me deep on my heart the most out of anything else is writing. I actually can't do anything else but writing. Yes, there are some times where I don't want to write at all, and writing for an hour is like hell, but also there are some times to where I'd rather write my book than watch an anime like One Piece, or watch an anime like Attack on Titan, which so many people say praises about Attack on Titan, and I'll say those praises as well, but I'd rather write than do that. I've always enjoyed writing. So 2025, I took mantle, I took hold, and I didn't write anything. Well, I did, it just took a while. I'd very lazily write. I wouldn't write much. I'd try to skip steps and just not write, and then I just completely deleted my draft, and then I started over. I didn't like my story. It was more My Hero Academia than what I wanted it to be. It was too much like My Hero Academia, and there wasn't enough character development. The main character and the deuteragonist, they weren't interacting how I would want them to. In my first draft, which I'm editing, they're still not interacting the best, but now I'm editing it and I understand characterization more. It's a bit different. But then I started in about April of this year, and it took me, oh my gosh, 3 months to get to July, where I only did 2 or 3 chapters. Yeah, I was barely writing. But again, the beginning of the story is always the hardest. The first 20% of my story took about 80% of the time, because the first 20% of the story, it doesn't have any of the ambition, doesn't have any of the action, doesn't have any of the world building. Now I've actually changed that in the editing process, but it didn't. So it took me forever until I started this challenge on YouTube. It is day X of trying to become the world's greatest author, and that gave me the motivation to push forward. And on day 54, which was on October the 4th or 3rd, or I don't know when, it was in early October, I finished it, the first draft, and I was proud. That final action scene that I wrote in my story was absolutely splendorous. I loved it. It was a beautiful piece of literature. And then I had a little bit of break. I was trying to plan out my story, but then I stopped, and then I tried to do another plan, and then I stopped, and then I went all over the place, really. Because Stephen King did say this, that when you're writing, you should have a 6-week break after you're writing, then pick back up. I tried to do that, but again, I'd always come back to this book, because I'd always just read over it and like, okay, need to change that. Why don't I just edit the entire thing? I tried editing my prologue, didn't work. The prologue doesn't need any edits. It's actually close to perfect. It's as perfect as I can get it. I need an editor for that. Then I started, and I'm editing in chapter 1. I'm only up to chapter 5 now in the editing process, but I'm almost doubling the word count. It's probably going to hit 60,000-70,000 words in length. No pun intended. I'm writing, and I'm getting more engaged than I used to, because I understand how to write now. I used to not. I've grown so much. I would love to show you guys a piece of writing that I had at the start of 2025, and now a year later at the start of 2026. I'm writing. And now my story's getting to a point to where I could say every chapter is amazing. There's many challenges in the writing process. One of them, and it's the greatest challenge, and I'm experiencing it right now. Even the greatest author, J.K. Rowling, experienced writer's block. I think it was in The Goblet of Fire. I don't know exactly, but I was writing. And I finished chapter 4 in 2 days, or editing. It doubled my original word count, 5,000 words, because I had this really nice world-building scene when the main characters were entering space. And I'm trying to capture a form of disorientation like a child. So, you know when you're a child, you used to imagine things vividly? That's what I was trying to capture. It was a beautiful scene. And then chapter 5 is when the story progresses. But in any show, you have that one episode. Even if you have a perfect 10 out of 10, 20 episode long season, you have to have one episode that fills in the gaps, that bridges it. And chapter 5 is that chapter. I'm up to it now, and it's hard to write. I'm only writing 700,000 words a day. That's not much compared to, I used to do 3, 4, 5. But what I have learned is that when you're writing, editing's a bit different. You're going to have those tough spots. You're going to have those rough spots. When you're editing, you have to push through. But when you're writing, you can skim over them. Because when you're writing your first draft, you will go back and edit. That's why I'm kind of struggling and I'm kind of smashing my head against the table, because those parts of my story have been roughly written. They're so minuscule to where I'm just questioning myself 6 months ago, 4 months ago. I'm just questioning what I wrote. It's okay, because now I'm editing. It's getting a lot better. It's not perfect, but it's getting better. But don't force yourself to write. It's one of those disciplines to where it's going to be really hard to get to the perfect level, but you can do it. But you cannot force yourself. In the editing process I'm talking about, you can force yourself a bit in the normal process. Not too much, because eventually you're going to rush over scenes, but you can do a little bit. But in the editing process, don't force yourself. Every word matters. You don't want to rush your work. This is an artwork. Artworks aren't meant to be rushed. Yes, you should give yourself deadlines, but they need to be flexible. It's the one part of my life to where it's not the end of the world if I don't complete my deadline. I want to try to complete it by the end of the holidays, but it may not happen, purely because of how writing is. It's a hard job. If it was easy, anyone would be doing it. If anything that is worthwhile is actually hard. Anything that is worthwhile is grueling. That's why only 1% of the population can become millionaires, because it is grueling, because it is challenging, but that's what makes it valuable. There's a quote, which you've heard me say it a million times in my YouTube videos, and it's a character from my story, the mentor character. Strength will come in time, but determination, that is what separates legends from the rest. And you have that determination to become the greatest astronaut. You have that determination to be a millionaire. You have that determination. You just got to put into work, and you got to prove to God. And there's a verse that I don't have on me right now, but basically it's in the book of Corinthians. Instead of working for yourself, instead of working for a man, imagine like you're working for God. Imagine God has challenged you to this task, and you are working as hard as you humanly possibly can at that task. That is how you should go about life. You should work like that. Work like God had appointed you to that very task, because once you do that, He will reward you. But sometimes you do need to be motivated. And what motivated me was simply enjoyment. You're wanting to write a story you enjoy. That's what J.K. Rowling did. She wrote a story she knew she would enjoy. You're meant to write that. Do not skip over the details. Be critical on yourself. If you struggle to read most stories, this one cannot be the story you don't struggle to read. Cannot be the story you don't struggle to write. Because I myself struggle to read. But you're meant to want to read your book. You're meant to want to write your book. Eventually you will get to a point to where you're sick of it. But I have not gotten to that point yet. Just keep on reading, keep on writing, and write to your enjoyment. Which my story, my inspiration, which a lot of people have asked, what is it? And I always say the Bible, and it's true. I take so many concepts from the Bible. And also sometimes I would have the Bible sitting next to me and my laptop sitting next to me. I was writing my book whilst reading the Bible. That's one of my inspirations. And I actually recommend it because you feel so enlightened when you're doing it. That's where I got most of my inspiration from. I love the idea of One Piece. Each arc is a different island, so each book will be a different planet. It's a sci-fi, it's an adventure, it's an epic. Each book, they go to another planet, another planet, another planet. The goal is to become the greatest astronaut. I'm not going to tell you what that name is. The goal is to explore space. But the more and more they explore space, the more they learn about the truths of the dark forest, the more they unravel this hidden agenda on who truly runs space. It's a bit allegorical in that nature as well. It is a story about revelations, or should I say, the book of Revelation. And that is why I get really excited. And that is also why I have the book of Revelation next to me whilst I'm writing. And that is my progress report right now. Follow if you want more progress reports like this, because I am Jaden Dimich, and my goal is to become the world's greatest author. And currently, I'm going to be writing that story. So if you like this story, make sure to subscribe, because I'm telling you, at 10,000, maybe a bit less, but I'm hoping 10,000 subscribers is when I'll start releasing snippets of my book as short stories. So subscribe for that.